Straight Talk Sales and Marketing Podcast, episode number 11. Welcome to Straight Talk Sales and Marketing with Janet Clark. Are you ready for more sales, more clients, and more cash flow? This podcast brings you direct, honest conversations with sales and marketing masters each week. Now here is your host, Sales and Marketing Master, Janet Clark.
Hello and welcome to Straight Talk Sales and Marketing. I am your host, Janet Clark, founder and CEO of The Freedom Shift. And you are in the right place if you are an entrepreneur who wants to close more sales. So today I have the pleasure of interviewing John Cote. And John is an award-winning author. And he is also he has a best-selling book called Mobilize Your Customers, and we'll be hearing about that. He is also the founder and CEO of John Cote and Associates, and he is the host of a podcast, which is called Healthcare Elsewhere?
Yep, you got it right.
I got it, okay. And so he's going to be talking to us today about what is really his favorite marketing strategy, which is also near and dear to my heart because it is podcasting. And for those of you who have been listening in, it seems like every time we talk about marketing, we get into some little subject about podcasting, or we touch on it somehow because it's so vital right now, or there's just so much opportunity in podcasting, which you're going to hear about. And, for all of us who are in sales, we're always looking for new ways to get, to network and to get our voice out there and to generate new leads. So I'm going to let John tell you a little bit about himself, and he is going to tell you about amazing results that he has been getting through his podcasting. So welcome, John.
Well, thanks, Janet. I really appreciate that. And thanks for the very warm welcome. So, as you said, I'm really working kind of in the podcasting field right now as kind of I kind of stumbled into it, really. I didn't even really listen to podcasts personally all that much. I was just too busy. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. I was more of a book reader type of a guy. But in any case, I started out in my professional life. I was a naval aviator. I was a Marine Corps officer and pilot, and then got hired by a major U.S. airline after serving for 10 years in the Marine Corps. And then 9/11 happened, and as it did for many Americans, it kind of changed my perspective on how safe my job was. All of a sudden I realized that, hey, I'm in one of the biggest airlines in the world, and we might go bankrupt. I might be out of a job, and I need to do something and have a backup plan. So that's kind of what started us down the path of getting into being a marketing agency. And we started out with social media and things like that, and we've been doing that for about 5 or 6 years now. But over time, what we kind of started discovering was I would go to meetup groups and Chamber of Commerce and was asked to speak, and I was getting a lot of the same questions over and over and over again. So what I decided to do is to write a book about it, and instead of going the traditional route, you've got Amazon and the Kindle and everything else, we decided to write this book. And so, just to kind of give you an idea, so this is about 115 pages, and we created this in about 30 total hours of work. And some of that I outsourced and wasn't even, my own personal work. So we just basically said, hey, this is what we want to do. It cost us about $400 total, and we did it in basically over about a 5 or 6 week period of time, and 30 total hours of work. And then we launched this book. We had a whole launch process on the Kindle, and then eventually made, the softcover edition that you just saw, and eventually also have an Audible edition. But the beauty of it was for us, we became a bestseller. It was really great. We're really excited about that. But it opened up a lot of opportunities for me that I never had really considered. We started getting asked to speak at national social media conferences and things like that. And that's kind of what led me into podcasting. So last year, we got a call from a medical tourism company or agency that basically said, hey, we're running this huge, they're an association, and they're running this big conference out in Vegas. There's going to be 2,000 attendees. We saw your book because we typed in a search on Google for word of mouth advertising. And so that's how they found me. And so even though I didn't have any experience with medical tourism per se, as a marketing expert, they wanted me to talk to all the attendees about marketing, and that's how I kind of stumbled into it last November. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. But the funny thing was while I was on stage, I just told everybody, hey, look, you've got this great opportunity. If you go to iTunes and type in medical tourism, you'll notice that no shows, nothing comes up in the podcast area. So you have this wide open opportunity to go out and you can totally dominate the market and be the first one in your niche to be there. Nobody else is there right now. And everyone said, wow, that's great. I had tons of people talking to me. And then, of course, everyone gets busy and they didn't take any action. So I decided to take action. And about back in February, we started the process. And 10 weeks later, we launched Healthcare Elsewhere as a medical tourism podcast.
So, I think what's interesting about this is that you're a marketing guy, but your podcast is about medical tourism, which is, something that you have a passion about, obviously. But so I think what's interesting is that regardless of what people are selling, whatever business they are in, there is a market for podcasting. So, just because I happen to be in sales and marketing and I'm podcasting about sales and marketing, that's one thing. But people who have any interest in anything can actually start a podcast and find a way to monetize it. And that's what I think is amazing. So tell us about that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, for us, it was a strategy to help us grow our agency, right? So we've been around for about 5 or 6 years now. And so we've had a variety of different types of clients, mostly here in the Huntsville, Alabama area where I'm based. And, it's about 300,000 people in the greater Huntsville area, maybe 400,000. So, we had a good base of clientele. But as we started speaking on the national stage, we started getting clients in different areas. And then, of course, once we started speaking at an international conference, now all of a sudden we're getting clients from all over the world. And we never intended for that to happen, but all of a sudden we're talking with people down in Costa Rica and Mexico and India and the Bahamas and France and all over the place. So it's been a lot of fun. So what's interesting about this is when we kind of took a little bit of a leap of faith, really. I kind of looked at the market and said, all right, nobody is doing a podcast to help people find out about medical tourism. So as you asked me in the pre-show, Janet, most people say, what exactly does medical tourism mean? What is that? And so just real quickly, a definition of that means that basically you're traveling to another country usually, or sometimes another part of your own country to get treatment that you either can't afford or your insurance doesn't cover or isn't available. Like, for example, from here in the United States, if you wanted to get a mouthful of crowns or something like that, it could cost anywhere from, $15,000 to $30,000. You can go down to Mexico to a world-class facility with Western-trained doctors and dentists who are very, very good at what they do and have, all name brand implants and get it done for like $5,000 or $6,000. And then, you include your travel down there, you can make a little vacation out of it. And so it's a way to really save a lot of money. And for some people, this is really the only option that they have. For some people, they have plenty of options and they choose to go do it anyway because they find in some cases they get better care or better service. They get their own private room with a separate bed for their spouse or partner that's there, to stay in. So, there's all sorts of different aspects of it, but I was really passionate about the subject because my wife is a 2-time cancer survivor. She had traveled extensively to get her treatments. We adopted 3 kids of our own as a sibling group from another country, and we spent a lot of time in their medical system. So I'd learned quite a bit about all this, and then recently I had stem cell implants into my knee to basically, help my knee recover from the damage I had suffered when I was in the military. So I have a passion for medical tourism, and I wanted to try and help those people, and I was trying to figure out a way, how could I monetize this? So instead of going after the actual companies and kind of doing a marketing podcast to help them in that niche, I decided to do a podcast that's geared towards people that I'm not going to sell anything to, and let the ancillary benefits of that come to me, and that's exactly what's happened. So in a nutshell, we have, the show is very patient-centric. It's all about their stories. It's all about, telling a really good and compelling and interesting story about someone maybe who has MS that traveled down to Panama, and all the doctors in the U.S. said, we can't do anything else for you. You're going to be in a wheelchair. She went and got stem cell therapy, and now she's good to go, and she can play with her kids, and it's great. It's a very compelling and interesting story. So we're trying to educate people about medical tourism and how it's an option for them and something that they can do. in the meantime, we also want to make money off of that. And the way that we make money is we don't make any money off of the people that listen to our podcast typically. What is happening is that companies who find the podcast are now looking me up and saying, well, who's this John Cote guy? They look me up on Google and they find my book, they find my marketing agency. And so we're getting calls from them, hey, we want to sponsor the show. We want to hire you as a marketing consultant. And so all of those and benefits of just having and putting out great content that a lot of people want to listen to has brought us the revenue that we're looking for, basically.
Yeah, so I love that, because anybody who has any passion for anything, right, can start a podcast about that and get residual benefits just because, maybe somebody who's in marketing is actually going to now be able to narrow down their niche and working with people in that niche and become the go-to person, which I see that you are now for anybody who's working in this medical tourism field. Who are they going to call?
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, who are they going to call when they're looking for a marketing person?
Well, they're starting to call me, which is kind of nice. Yeah. So, and another benefit to this too is when you create all that content, I showed the book here. So we created this book I didn't write the book. I actually just talked into my iPhone while I was on the way back and forth to the airport and made about 8 hours worth of audio recordings talking about social media and how to use mobile and everything to get your customers to engage with you. And then we had that transcribed and turned into a book. So this time now we have, over 60 some episodes. So we're taking like the top 10 or 15 episodes, getting them transcribed and turning that into a book. So we're going to have about a 250-page book. I've been invited to speak again at this same conference. They were so excited about, they got a lot of great feedback. They actually asked me to be part of a couple of training webinars that they were running for medical tourism facilitators to help them with that. So I gladly did that and volunteered my time to do that. But now, when I go back in September to speak at this conference, I'll be up on stage. There'll be hundreds and hundreds of people there, thousands of people in the whole venue. And everyone that attends my presentation, we're giving away a free copy of my book. Because you can make, like at Amazon through CreateSpace, this particular book I think costs $2.19 per copy. That is the best business card you are ever going to hand to somebody. Now, a lot of them aren't even going to take the time to read it, but they see Amazon #1 bestseller on the cover, or they go to iTunes and they see, you and New and Noteworthy, or you're one of the leading podcasts in your field. It just helps to justify who you are and gives, social proof, and helps it make an easier decision for them when it's time to pull out that checkbook and write a nice big check for you. So
yeah, I think that's great. So I know, because I can't wait to hear it. So I know that our audience is out there going, okay, how do I do it? How do I get the start a podcast? Is it a big, complex thing? And, what's going to be entailed in doing it? So, and then also, because you've had such success in the number of downloads that you actually have to your podcast, tell us what the process is.
Sure. For me, I had already the marketing background, and we do a lot of video work for our clients. So we already had a studio set up, ready to go, and so that wasn't really an issue. All I needed to do was, I bought some nice equipment. I bought this nice microphone and an amplifier. You don't even have to have that. You can get, like a regular Yeti mic. They cost about $100 on Amazon. Plug it into your computer, whether it's a laptop or a Mac or a PC. And, just start practicing, just start recording, figuring out, practice on a few people that who are, you're going to be talking as an expert in your field. Just start practicing a couple of times and kind of, get your banner down, figure out what kinds of questions you want to ask people. And then, you kind of go from there. All of the tools that you need to do this are basically free. iTunes is free. We're on over a dozen platforms right now. Like now SoundCloud, I think we pay like $100 a year for a pro account or something like that. And same thing with Spreaker. But other than that, we're on about a dozen platforms. They're all free to upload all of this stuff, and you can easily go onto YouTube and just type in how to podcast, and you'll find plenty of free information that'll explain that to you. Me, I like to cut to the chase, so I went immediately to the leading podcaster, or one of the leading podcasters in the world, John Lee Dumas. I happened to see an interview that he did with Entrepreneur on Fire. It was outside of that, and I saw what he was doing, and I was like, perfect, that's exactly what I want. I bought his course on how to be a podcaster, got involved with his mastermind, and basically cut right to the chase. So from the time that I said go in February till our launch date was 10 weeks, and we made it happen. And we had 25 episodes already done, and we had originally started out to be a daily podcast, which is a lot of work. I mean, it's a lot of, to line up all the interviews and everything. And we finally got to the point where we started running out of people to talk to. We're spending a lot of time trying to actively find more people. So I actually hired somebody to help me with that. So we've gone down to where we're doing it 3 days a week, but still, we're getting more and more downloads as we've been able to continue to grow the podcast. And the way that we did that was we set up with Facebook. Initially, we had a Facebook fan page. No list, no likes, no fans, no nobody. And we basically started a Facebook campaign, an ad campaign that we spent some money on, hired a professional to do that. And she was able to get us around, I think it was about 2,500 likes by the time we launched. And we were able to convert many of those into actual listeners on launch day. So that on launch day, we were number one in science and medicine in our category of choice, which was exactly what we'd intended to do. So, I'm kind of glossing over a little bit exactly how you do all this, but there are tons of resources. I mean, people that are way more experienced than me who have gone out and created courses that are not that expensive. I mean, there's a starter course I think that John has on Udemy, and I'm not an affiliate of his or anything like that, but there's a starter course you can get for under $100, I think, that will teach you the basics of what you need to know to get started on how to podcast. But don't sit there and say, well, I don't like the way I look on camera. I don't like the way my voice sounds, or I've got to do this, or I got to do it. Everyone's got a million excuses why they can't do it. Don't tell me why you can't do it. Tell me why you can do it. You should do it. Create content, put it out there as much as you can, get it out there for everybody to hear. And the listeners and the viewership and the revenue will all come later. And that, it's not going to happen right away, but it will happen.
Yeah, thanks. And, I just kind of wanted to say, too, you talked about having a studio and whatnot. My audience knows I sit either here or in my home office in Florida. I wouldn't call it a studio. This is my microphone right here, and I think it was probably $100 or less. And, and it's Google Hangouts, and we extract...
Free, by the way.
Yep. What's that?
Free, by the way, Google Hangouts.
Yeah, and we extract out the MP3, which goes up onto iTunes, and then we can post the video on different platforms like Libsyn and YouTube. So it really doesn't have to be high tech to start, and there are some technical pieces to it. We've actually, through my company, The Freedom Shift, we've actually created a launch program where people can actually get us to do the techie pieces. Now, the marketing piece of it is a little bit, that's where it really becomes tricky. Or I shouldn't say tricky, but it needs some emphasis and strategy. And it sounds like you really put that effort in the beginning to make sure that when you did launch, you were already at the top of the charts.
Yeah, we did. It was a combination of social media, email list, people who had supported my books in the past. We had some joint venture partners of, other people who were authors and marketing experts who I helped them with their book. They helped me with my book. I reached out to all of them and said, hey, if you wouldn't mind, all I'm looking for is people to like the Facebook page because we want to get them to listen to the show and subscribe to the show. And so they were, there was no monetary anything involved with it. And for a lot of them, it was they're like, wow, medical tourism, what is that? It was an interesting and compelling topic for them, and I told them it was very story-based and everything. And so I'm sure that we have quite a few listeners. We've had a few people email us even and say, they personally have not traveled. They're not really necessarily interested in doing it, but they listen to the show because they find it the stories are compelling. All I do is, again, I'm not a professional radio person or anything like that. All I did was I just started asking questions and interviewing people about their expertise or their experience and let them tell their story. story. And that seems to be, working really well. It's compelling to people. And, another point too, I do have a studio now and everything. We did create an office because I got to the point where, I've got a wife, I got 3 kids, 2 dogs, a guinea pig, and I don't know, probably other various and sundry animals I'm not even aware of at the house. But, it got to the point where if we were going to do a daily podcast, it was too hard to have everyone be quiet, all day while I'm doing 8 interviews or something. So we did used to have all this set up in the basement of our house. We had a nice finished basement, and so I commandeered a corner of it, and we were doing it out of the house. So you can absolutely do this from your house. You don't need a whole big studio, all this professional equipment. I have it because we do this as part of our marketing agency. People hire us and use us as consultants to do these kinds of things for them. But you absolutely do not need that to get started. For a couple of $100, you can go out and get started, no problem at all.
Yeah, and it's been great. And, you don't really even have to do it video. Obviously, we know that there's benefits to doing video because we can repurpose this content and go across multiple platforms, which I think is something that you alluded to, right? That there's so many places where you can post this stuff.
Yeah, we believe in the concept, and it's not my original thought, but a guy named Mike Koenigs that I've trained under for several years has a book called You Everywhere Now. And the concept is that, why limit yourself to, if you only do iTunes, well, like 2/3 of the world has an Android phone. So you just threw those people right out the window. So be as many places as you can be. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go out and be on every single social media platform and every single podcasting platform. But for us, we picked 2 or 3 podcasting platforms to start and 2 or 3 social media platforms to start. We launched, we got ourselves going, and then we tweaked it, figured out where people were really listening to us, added some more, and now we're on over a dozen platforms and, 6 or 7 different social media sites. We're on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all the usual suspects. We do a little bit on Tumblr, Instagram, Pinterest, things like that. And, we just kept adding to it and building on it and building on it. And now, of course, for us, this is part of my agency and part of what we're doing. We're using this to help promote me and the agency to get people to hire us. However, in the show itself, we never mention my agency at all, or I never even mention marketing at all. All we do is talk about medical tourism. And in the course of doing that, now we've had almost, I think we're up to about 140,000 downloads. We'll crack 150,000 by the end of the week. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. We're going to have over 1 million listeners or 1 million downloads before the end of the year, just by the gravitas of having that many people listening and talking about it and sharing it and everything else. We're getting clients now coming to us and saying, we want what you have. We want to work with you. We want you to do for us what you're doing for, for these client or these people who are listening to the show.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the various ways that you can monetize a podcast, because, the obvious benefit is just getting people who listen in, who will go to your website and opt into your list and then ultimately, hire you. But there's more. There's other ways that the podcast itself can become a recurring income stream. And I would love for you to share some of the ways that I don't know how many of them you're going to use or will be or do use, but I know you're very involved in the community of podcasters. So talk a little bit about what people are doing to monetize their podcasts.
Sure. For me, I looked at it as kind of a 3-legged seat or chair or stool, whatever you want to call it. We're looking at sponsorship advertising. So before we even launched our first episode, because we had a following on Facebook, now 2,500 people may not sound like a lot, but it was highly targeted. We were specifically targeting people who had mentioned they were interested in medical tourism or had traveled. We were targeting specific executives and things like that. So what ended up happening was before we even launched, people were getting a lot of, we were getting a lot of, likes. A lot of people were talking on the Facebook page. We were getting contacts from companies before we even launched the podcast saying, we would like to sponsor your show. And I was like, well, okay, great. But I have no idea how many people are going to be listening. I can't give you an idea of what the CPM, the cost per thousand would be or anything. So let's get this out. Let's get a 60, 100 episodes done 2 or 3 months down the road. And then I'll be happy to talk with you about that. So we kept a list of all the people that had contacted us. Now we're in contact with them about sponsoring the show. So that's one way that you can do it. And that's based on the number of downloads that we get, per day or per episode. Another thing that we're doing, of course, is we're acting as consultants for people, for industries or companies that are looking to either be to draw and attract people who from the United States or Canada or from anywhere in the world, for that matter, to their country or to their facility. So, we're getting revenue as a consultant. Basically, people are hiring us for that. And then we also have some done-for-you services, of course, as part of that. We can create podcasts for them. We can show them how this all works. We can show them how to publish a book. Those are much higher end, high dollar kinds of things that, for us, a lot of us locally, when we first started 6 years ago, the companies that we were working with, they're great, love them all and everything, but, it was, a lot of companies and a couple $100 a month. And we found that we were spending an awful lot of time working with people that we were only getting a couple $100 a month from. And it was like the amount of revenue that we're getting isn't worth the amount of time that we're putting into this. It was difficult. And over time, some of them would leave, we'd lose some through attrition and this and that. And as we got newer clients, we were tending to build bigger packages so that we could, properly monetize the time that we were putting into what we were doing. And what we found is that, you need to pick a niche or pick a group of companies that you want to work with that can afford to hire you. I mean, I'm not bashful about the fact that, people pay thousands of dollars for the information that we have, because I know that I can make their company a lot of money by using the strategies that we have, and they can cut to the chase and get out there and use what we're teaching them and showing them and doing for them, and bring a whole bunch of revenue in that they can measure. It's not just, oh, well, we get you a bunch of Facebook likes. No, we're actually bringing revenue into the company that they can measure, and they like that. And a lot of times we're starting to do revenue shares with them, because now we have skin in the game. Instead of us charging a big, huge fee up front, we say, well, we'll charge a lesser fee and take a percentage of the back end. And a lot of them like that. So that's the second way that we're monetizing. And then the third way is we're actually considering, we're looking at building a course that will help, for example, medical tourism facilitators. These are like travel agents with a medical background who help to find the proper places for these people to go to get these back surgeries or knee surgeries or cancer treatments or whatever it is they're getting. So as a patient, you would hire this company to help you find the right place for you to go and so on. They're really good at what they do, but most of them are using traditional old school marketing, and they need help with doing this. So we're going to basically create a course that will give them, here's how you do it. And they'll be able to buy into the course and have all the video training. And so if they don't have the funding to be able to afford my agency or someone like us to help them and just to do it for them, they can do it themselves and get the training, the proper education that they need to do it that way. And so that would be more of a membership type of a site. So those are the three ways that we're talking about monetizing it at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also, for people who want to even expand it further, there's joint venture opportunities where the people who are interviewed, we are not in that kind of a situation. So, but, if we were, and you were talking about your agency and there was a joint venture going on, then there would be a commission paid, right, on things like
absolutely.
That. So
yeah, that's right.
I think a lot of people use that to monetize their sites and their podcasts, I mean. And, I mean, there's more that we haven't probably even thought about.
Sure.
But it's the thing that I think is really a great message to leave with people is that if you have even an inkling in your mind right now that you should think about doing a podcast, then you should do it and let it build. Typically people don't monetize their podcasts right away. It's really a case of getting comfortable, getting experts that you can interview on your podcast, getting some rankings, starting to do some promotion, and then as I think there actually is some standard about how many downloads you should have before you could really approach someone to pay for sponsorship.
Yeah, and there's different and varying numbers on that. And what's funny is when you listen to some of the interviews with, some of the older school podcasters, guys and women that have been doing this for a long time, they've kind of blazed the trail and helped make podcasting what it is today. But they're not seeing the same kind of revenue. And a lot of them, I understand where they're coming from. They're like, well, I just don't see how you're making that kind of money off of that, because all they're looking at is the the revenue from the actual sponsorship, or maybe some kind of little joint venture, something going on like that where people are clicking through and buying something separately on their website or whatever. And when you talk about these kinds of things, it really kind of opens their eyes and they see what's available out there. And for some people, they just don't want to do that. They just want it to, I'm like, okay, that's fine. Whatever you want to do it for. But if you're interested in using, whether it be podcasting or Google Hangouts, create some content, get content out there, give people good, actionable information that will help them, to change their life. And what you'll find is that, yes, some people are never going to spend any money with you. They're going to take every ounce of information that you can give them, and they will never, ever spend a penny with you, and that's fine. Some of the people are going to see what you do and hear what you do, and they're going to go, wow, this person really knows what they're talking about, really knows what they're doing, and I either want to buy their course to learn how they're doing it, or I don't have the bandwidth for that. I'm just going to flat out hire them and let them do it for me, and I'm willing to trade my money because my time is more valuable to me. And I read a great quote somewhere that most people value their time or their money, or wait, let me get this right. Their value perception of money is higher than it is of time, when the reverse should be true. It's kind of like, why are you still, for example, as an entrepreneur, you shouldn't be cutting your own lawn at home unless you really like to do that. Hire somebody for $30 or $50 or whatever and let them do it, because you can be making thousands of dollars during that same hour or two that it would take you to do it. So it's just a mindset kind of shift and just taking massive action and doing it and accepting the fact that, yes, I can do this.
Yeah, I actually did a little video blog on that today, and I called it, "Are You Having Fun Yet?" And fun meaning fulfilling unmet needs. Because
I like that. That's good.
You're trying to. The reason we have this business is to have our needs met, right? But
Sure.
We don't take the time to fulfill those needs because we're so busy chasing after this money that is supposed to get us that fun.
Right.
How about we just start, meeting our own needs now? And that's one of the ways. It's like, why work yourself to death, right? Just find something to do that's good. Anyway, we digress, but I had to put that in because we're on the same wavelength on that one.
Sure.
So John, thank you so much. And, one thing I would like to say when you were talking about creating content, this is the easiest way in the world to create content if you like to talk to people and learn new things. And, for me, like, I can spend an hour or a half an hour on a podcast with someone. I just created awesome content, and I didn't have to do any of the work other than invite you here and chit chat with you. Yeah. So it's amazing. Podcasting, I think we're both on the same mindset there, that podcasting is definitely just a great marketing strategy that will lead to sales, which is
absolutely. And let me throw one other little quick thing in there too, just to show you how easy it is to get started on something like this. With an Android or an iPhone, you've got a voice recorder on there, right? They have, I think iRig or somebody like that, iMic, I forget who they are. They have a special microphone you can plug into your iPhone. It's like a regular mic like this. You can buy a mic flag for a few dollars. So, for like $100, $150, you can plug this in the iPhone and then go to a trade show or an event at wherever your, whatever your niche is or something like that. And then just go up and say, hey, I'm with such the Medical Tourism Podcast, Healthcare Elsewhere, and I'd like to talk to you. So, I've already reached out to, the Medical Tourism Association and said, hey, by the way, I want to not only speak at your thing, I appreciate you having me there, but I'm going to interview anyone who wants to get interviewed. Can you just set me up a room? I'll bring all the equipment and do it for you for free, no problem. Think of all the content that I'll be able to get there. I'll be able to get several months worth of content in a couple of days worth of a conference. So as an individual, you can just go with an iPhone, just go to a meetup group or whatever and just start interviewing people. Maybe it's only a 5-minute show. Do a 5-minute podcast. There are people who do it. They do a daily 5-minute podcast and they have huge followings. So there's all kinds of ways you can do it. Just don't accept a no for an answer. Don't say, well, I can't do this, or I don't have the time, or I don't have the bandwidth. I guess the best quote I could probably leave you with was a good Marine Corps buddy of mine once said this, and I don't remember where he got it from, but said, instead of saying, I don't have the time, say, I don't have the discipline. Because if you had the discipline and it was important enough to you, you would do it. If your family's life depended on it, you would do it. So if it's important enough to you and you believe in it, then you should do it. Don't say, well, I don't have the time to do it. No, you just don't have the discipline. You're putting other things in place of it, whether that be, and I'm not family time, and that's fine. We all need good balance in our life, or, time at the beach, or time with your full-time job, or watching TV, or, Game of Thrones, or whatever it is that you're watching. I mean, you got to balance all that and figure out what's going to be important to you.
Well, I totally agree with you there. So I would like to just wrap up by saying that John's information, John, give us your website address.
Sure. You can find the podcast at healthcareelsewhere.com, and like I said, we're on iTunes and a bunch of other different places. You can just type in healthcare elsewhere or medical tourism pretty much into Google, and it'll pretty much show up everywhere. And if you want to reach me personally or have some questions, you can find me at John, John, at John Cote, that's JOHNCOTE.net, and I'll be happy to answer any questions for you.
Okay. So we are going to sign off for today. I do want to let you know that John's information is on our show page, which you can reach at www.straighttalksalesandmarketing.com. And of course, I'd love you to go over there and pick up a free copy of my ebook, Sell from the Heart. And as always,
you need to put that on the Kindle, by the way.
What did you say?
I'm sorry. You need to put that on Kindle, by the way, if you haven't already.
I know. I got to get you to help me do that. Yeah. Awesome. This guy's got so many great ideas. I'm bursting at the seams here, but unfortunately we have to close for today, but
No
we
problem.
are going to interview John again because he is amazing. Okay. So as I think about putting my ebook on Kindle, in the meantime, you can download it off of my website. And if you want to chat with me at any time, it's janet@thefreedomshift.com. I love to hear from you. And until next week, happy selling, happy marketing. And if you are thinking about starting a podcast, let me know, and I will get you to John or to the Freedom Shift or whatever resources you need to create the podcast of your dreams. So thanks, everybody, and thank you, John.
Thanks, Janet. Appreciate it.
All righty.
And thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the podcast. So now we want to know, what were your big takeaways from this episode? What are you actually going to do to change your life and change your business from the things that you've learned here in this podcast? Just simply visit straighttalksalesandmarketing.com/011 for episode number 11, and just leave a comment there letting us know what your big takeaway was. So also, please be sure to spread the news about this podcast by leaving a review on iTunes. Just simply go to straighttalksalesandmarketing.com/podcast, and you can click the little subscribe button, and then there's a little ratings and review button. Just click that and leave your review right there. And we really appreciate that because it helps spread the message and helps more people find the podcast on iTunes. And lastly, now it's time for you to go take action. So we've appreciated your support. We're grateful that you've been listening, but now it's time for you to go out there, to take action, and make your shift to financial freedom today.